you're doing Excel things like using sum and doing subtraction and building graphs and stuff like that. And all of that is important to me. But the summary response is really about writing. It's about talking about numbers, talking about math in context. So that's one of the reasons why Excel to me is so important in terms of the value of the course, in the course. Now, this last part of the summary question, a lot of people struggled with. I think I saw maybe one answer that really kind of hit it out of the park in terms of answering the question directly. I don't know if you're worried about wealth inequality in America or if you've never thought about it. It's hard to imagine that you've never thought about it because it's kind of in your face all the time. If you, through media and, you know, people showing you the wonderful things that you could have in your life if you just got the right job or worked a little harder or invested your money with this, whatever. It's kind of just part of our culture to glorify having a lot of money. So the question is, how does the graph support their concerns? So first of all, we've got to break it down because who am I talking about? Whose concerns? What concerns are we talking about?
The wealth in America.
Yeah, that's the concern I'm talking about. It's a reference to the previous sentence, right? So you have to kind of spend some time. This is the other thing that's challenging about the summary question is you got to read it carefully enough to put things together in terms of what's being asked. So many people, we don't know who the people are. I'm stating something that sounds like a fact. Many people are worried about wealth inequality in America. How does this graph support their concerns? So their concerns is the people who are worried about wealth in America. How does the graph support the concept that people should be worried about wealth in America? That's the question. And some of you talked about like why it's a problem, but the question isn't why is the wealth inequality in America a problem? The question is, how does the graph support that it is a problem? So what are some potential things that we could say referencing the picture, right? We have to make specific reference to this picture if we want to answer this question well.
So would it be that, because I was very confused with like my feedback, like, because I kept looking back at my answer and I was like, I don't know what I did wrong. So I'm glad we're going over this. Is it because like the 1% and 4% and 5% of the graph make up like pretty much like 75% of the graph? Like, so everybody else, like the bigger percentages of people is like a smaller part of the graph. I don't know if I'm wording that correctly.
That's great. That's great. I mean, the whole point of a pie chart is to visualize the whole. And so wealth in America is a perfect opportunity for the pie chart. And in fact, there's a guy who does a video with pie talking about splitting up America's wealth and who gets what size slice of pie. And so, yeah, you could break it down a lot of different ways, but I like what you just said. I mean, if you take the top 1%, the next 4%, and the next 5%, that's the top 10% of America. Those are the richest, wealthiest Americans. They have over 75%. And why are we saying 75%? Because 3/4 is 75. So that's the kind of the visual shows you they have the vast majority of wealth in America. That means the other 90% of American wealth combined is all in that little quarter, under a quarter. That's one way to talk about it. Anybody have a different idea to talk about how the graph supports the inequality, the idea that there's inequality? And by the way, the label, I think, is a problem on this last piece, but can you see the labels at the bottom? That last group is a brown slice. Do you see the brown slice?
I don't.
No.
No, there's 8 groups and you can really only see 7 of them. What does that mean about the brown slice? Did Excel just forget to put it in there?
No, it's just so small that it's not visible.
Yeah, it's like crumbs. It's hardly anything. And that's not easy to see from the table, because if you run around saying, hey, the bottom 20% of America has $9.8 billion of wealth. Well, $9.8 billion is a lot of money, right? But compared to the rest of America, it's crumbs. It's not even visible on the pie chart. So that would be another way to talk about the inequality, not to focus on the top group, but to focus on the bottom group that you can't even see in this graph. So the point is that there's lots of ways to answer the summary questions. There's not always one right answer, especially when you get to these kind of bigger questions about how does this support, or what does this say? I mean, in the question about evaluating the ratio, I did expect a particular answer, because when you do the calculation, you should have ended up with, everybody should have ended up with the same ratio. You can turn that into a percent because it's part to whole. And then I want to hear what it means. And if you only like said the ratio is 0.39, you didn't go the whole way to tell me what the significance of it is. But when we're talking about this other question, there's lots of ways that you could answer it. So it's not like you got to guess the right answer. You just have to connect it to what the question is actually asking. And that's challenging, right? But that's the point. I don't want all of this to be, easy calculations that you can just, as long as you get the first number right and the second number right, and put it in your calculator, you get the right thing. I mean, yes, I want you to be able to do that, but we also should be able to do more, and talking about what the numbers say is a part of what the class is about. So that's what I wanted to say about Excel 2.